Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to episode 3. Today we're going to be talking about the difficult conversations. You might be hearing about some heavy topics like immigration. You're supposed to fill in the blank, dude. I'm not just going to lecture the audience.
Uh,
War,
I think our audience is not
poverty.
just all of a sudden hearing about immigration and war. Like, everybody, I think we're all in the same boat. Like, we are all, what's that word? Inundated? Inundated?
Inundated.
Inundated with the images and the news. Like, I think it's part of our screen addiction. I remember we were so young and this major event happened, and I think even then our parents were thinking, oh, what are our kids gonna be thinking about in terms of Islamophobia, or now we're going to Afghanistan, we're going to war in Iraq. Like, I think those are things where they were probably thinking about too. But I think what's different now is something we talked about last week, is the technology, right? We didn't have as much images, and as we didn't have any like live stream happening, right? Like, it was
Mm-hmm.
whatever CNN was telling us.
Mm-hmm.
We all had to believe that's what was happening. We didn't have the access to different individuals with on the ground from any side sharing their individual level stories like we do now. And I think that plays a huge role in how we have to talk about these events to our kids.
You might be thinking to yourself, like, what am I even doing here? And I think that's what everybody's like, what am I doing here? How can I even help? How can I even make a difference? And I think it's really important for you to take care of yourself mentally, though you are not the reason for the world that is on fire right now. And so don't shoulder all that burden. Remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners. You have to make your dua. You have to stay connected spiritually. You have to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Because if you just start to just absorb all this news and swipe and share and feel so depressed and go to this event and that event and you can't reach people, you're not making a difference. You're just making yourself more tired and fatigued. That's not productive at all. So read, report, share, connect, build, you know, try to keep your routine. Don't get into doom scrolling. And so preserve your mental health. And if you are a parent of young children, that's really important. You can't just be sitting in a corner and crying and scrolling. That's not a good look. That is teaching your children that something is wrong, and they will sense that depression, and they will become fearful. And so you want to instill confidence in them. You want to instill responsibility in them. You want to instill knowledge in them. And so you have to do that with patience and preserving your mental health, inshallah.
And sometimes that look like faking it till you make it. And sometimes you just have to. And you're training your own mindset to do that. You're faking yourself out, and that's okay to start with that.
It seems like you're faking it, but you're being real. You don't have control. Allah's the one who has control. He decided to put you here. He decided to give you the resources that you have. And so appreciate that. Be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then let the result of what's happening in the world rest with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't have control, but you take your whatever action you can in your circle. And if that means giving a meal to your neighbor and introducing yourself to them, as simple as that, or if it means, standing up at your workplace and losing your job. Some people have lost their job. Some people have walked in streets and gotten arrested, and some people have completely lost their lives for standing up for what's right. And we all grew up learning American history. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, John F. Kennedy, all these people that we vouch to be heroes. They
Mm-hmm.
all stood for something, and they all sacrificed something. So what are we sacrificing? We should at least be sacrificing our Netflix time, our Amazon Prime time, or whatever it is. That's a very small thing that we can let go of. And when you do that, you share with your kids, hey, remember we used to watch Netflix all the time. They know, they're aware. If you have like 10, 11, 12-year olds, and in the last couple of years, That was part of your routine. Maybe after Ramadan, you're hitting the reset button like us. And I'm having that conversation with my kid. We don't have to watch a movie every weekend. We don't have to order pizza every 3 nights. And these are luxuries, small luxuries that you give up and eventually build to that point where you're actually making a difference, inshallah. Each age group is different. So let's start from the beginning. If you have a preschooler, 3, 4, 5 years old, for them, they don't need to really hear about the details of geopolitics and things of that nature. You can just keep it very simple. Yes, there are some bad things happening in the world right now, but the most important thing is that we are safe and we are together and we need to love each other. Because of the child's brain development, they're not even going to be able to grasp it. And sadly, there are children that age that are suffering through war, through poverty, um, for as long as people can remember. But that just doesn't mean that we introduce them to those videos and to those images.
Definitely not. I don't think you're talking about toddler and preschool. Like, I don't think even upper elementary should really be exposed to the images because their brains are such a developmental stage. Like, that will be a literal nightmare. Like, they will not be able to sleep through some of those images, or just the feelings that they may get. They won't know how to name them per se. And so I don't think the images should be shown as much as possible. Like, unless there's more of a story going with it. Like, but the little snippets that we share and reshare on our stories are too small and too short to be able for them to understand and grasp what's happening. And the younger ages to recognize that they are repeating everything that they're hearing.
Yeah.
Right? They're repeating what we say in general, right? That's how they learn language. And so when they hear something you're playing on your phone, or they keep hearing those words, they will repeat them elsewhere.
I think by the elementary age, let's say, 2nd through 5th grade, children have already heard or overheard from their classmates about something, right? For sure. And I think at that age, cognitively, they're ready, but emotionally they're not.
Right.
So they can understand that, bad things are happening and bad things happen. For example, my son, who's in the 2nd grade, he's like, oh yeah, I know there's a war going on, and he named the country, and he said, yeah, there are bad people. And I'm like, I mentioned to him, yeah, there are some bad people, and he's like, yeah, like Pharaoh. So like, he knows stories from the Quran. He's learned about oppressors and tyrants and oppressive rulers and such. So he has an idea of it. And
if you move away from that, any story, even younger, like the 4-year-old shows, there is a bad guy, right? Whether that's a kid who's a bully, that's the best stories, right? Where there's a problem. You know what makes a good story? Mm-hmm. Similarly, that's why there are stories in the Quran, right? Mm-hmm. And so those stories always, Quran or non, the ones who are good stories have that protagonist and antagonist, and that is a great way to talk about real life, right? Using stories, right? And they don't have to be as graphic, but that simile and metaphor can happen where, when I taught kindergarten, we were talking in our curriculum, there was a whole unit on Christopher Columbus, right? And I couldn't just do it, right? I had to, even if you're in kindergarten, you do understand somebody taking something that's not yours. Because it happens all the time. They're kids. Mm-hmm. And so we use a similar, very easy example. The room next to us, the other classroom. Like, what if they just came into our classroom and started using all of our stuff and told us we just have to sit at this one table and that's it. And like, that's not fair. We wouldn't let that happen. And, they were getting these different reactions. Mm-hmm. And so you're able to use such a common and easy example for them to kind of just understand, like, okay, this is what actually happened.
I think in the preschool age, like, you don't want to introduce like bad guys or anything like that. I do remember when our kids are younger and they end up watching a cartoon episode of something with something that's so light, like Wild Kratts. We love to watch Wild Kratts, right? Yeah. There's like these, Zach is an evil character, and Gourmand, he like eats the animals. And Chris and Martin are like trying to protect the animals, and there's like these villains. He is disturbed by that as a 3-year-old, as a 4-year-old, early 4-year-old. He's about to turn 5. For the preschoolers, Keep it very simple if they even ask. But it's totally okay to shelter them from talking about it. I actually don't feel like you should talk to that young of an age child about harsh realities of life.
And it doesn't have to be that end of it, right? There's the other side you can take of it, right? There's a part of justice that you talk to them as they get older, but this part of compassion that starts earlier, right? So justice is getting more into that upper elementary, where you're telling them how we are supposed to stand for justice, right? Whether that's using our hands, our voice, or our heart. But for the youngers, it is that compassion, right? Like, you don't know what somebody's going through, right? There's so many things happening in the world, so we have to be kind to everybody, right? And so just helping them think about that there's more to what the world than just my world. I think that can start early, even if they don't completely get it. Just saying those words, right? Like, that's practice on ourselves, right? So somebody's driving rough and they're having a bad day, but I'm also gonna start getting mad. But I can use that minute to be like, oh, maybe they are having a bad day. That's why they just cut me off, and that little thing can help them understand, like, oh yeah, there's other people's lives in the world.
Yeah, children are like sponges. They really absorb everything they see and hear, and so it's really important not to be on your phone scrolling through YouTube videos, YouTube shorts, or Instagram reels when they're around. Try to put that away totally.
And I think also knowing your child, every kid is so different, right? Some kids are going to express fear when they see something. Some are going to express extreme sadness that they can't control. And some are going to express like a obsession or real interest in something that you're like, why are you into that? So you also want to protect them from that, like, because what they're exposed to is what they're going to fall into. So looking at your child, what emotion is really strong for them, especially at that younger age, because it's really hard for them to control those emotions. So not giving them things that are going to help feed that one emotion more and more, but even trying to avoid it. And, start managing emotions comes so much later. So they're not able to manage even their happiness, right? Like, you can't keep telling a 4-year-old, be quiet when they're super excited. They just can't. So, but when they are 7, 6 years old, they're getting there, you can. And they do. You can see that difference, right? And so that is when you can start talking a little bit more about it.
And when you notice your 7 or 8-year-old managing and controlling their emotions, you should acknowledge it and commend them for it, so they realize that you notice that, you acknowledge that, and you encourage that as they continue to grow older. When they're 10 or 11 or 12 years old, even if they don't have phones, their friends have phones. And you want to teach them how to differentiate between news that is biased and unbiased. How media literacy is important at 10, 11, and 12 years old, that early on, because they're going to be exposed to it. And so when a friend says such and such, did you know this is happening, train them to question that. Oh, where did you hear that? Oh, who told you about it? And then verify. Check with a trusted adult. Check with your social studies teacher. Check with your parent. Check with an older cousin who may be in college, who may be like that you're close to and you're talking to. So these are ways. Don't tell them just simply do your own research, right? They're 10, 11, 12 years old. They should first use the people that are closest to them, that are that actually care about their well-being as a source. And then, as they get older, they can kind of like navigate on their own and see what media is coming from the left, from the center, from the right. And they should be able to value different perspectives. Right? Also, not be totally duped by the media. So the media thinks you are just a complete fool and you have no idea, what's going on. You have to know who owns the media. You have to know who owns these companies that we often patronize. And so, little kids in kindergarten are saying, oh, we don't eat at such and such restaurant. We're boycotting that place because, these people are doing this and that. That's little kids just absorbing what they hear. But that becomes a reality for that 10 and 11 years old kid who has a classmate who's bringing a milkshake or a cup of whatever from wherever. You'll have a difficult conversation or a realization like, oh, why are you buying that? Why are you drinking that? Why are you eating that?
I think going into the older kids, like, critical thinking is so important, right? Like, even challenging if you hear something from us, right? Like if I'm just watching random videos and just saying, "Oh, did you guys know this? Did you know that?" Ask me, "How did you know that?" And how can we learn more about that? Are you like that's okay. That's a good conversation to have at that age because they should be able to learn to verify things, and not just take it just as is if they have questions about it, right? Like that's not really making sense. Drinking hot tea the first thing in the morning, hot water, boiled apples. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, challenge that. Sure. What are the benefits of that? Look it up. You don't have to be a Chinese baddie like me.
Okay.
He's jealous.
Anyways, Zhu Zhangji.
Going back to that compassion piece, like teaching the younger kids, and this is for all the great ages, and also all for us too. Remembering to, as we're standing for justice, to have that empathy with those who are suffering. That is something that our religion teaches us. And how do we have empathy? That's something like we kind of have to build into our family or our kids, because we don't see it always firsthand, right? We're not seeing suffering firsthand, maybe, but it is happening in different ways, right? So even if we can do little things to help somebody that is in our circle, in our area, right? Somebody's sick, we send them soup. The other day, the neighbor mowed our lawn, and Musa's like, "Are you gonna pay him?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Oh, first of all, he's like, did you tell him to do that?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Okay, so you're gonna pay him, right?" I'm like, "No, this is neighbors do that. It's okay. You have this community. That's purpose of like living amongst people." And so that for him was like, "What? We can just do things for each other?" And like, so that's something I think also to build in as you're talking about these harsh realities. Like there are still people who are doing the good. That's how we're all even surviving, doing those actions, finding ways to do that in what you can.
Yeah, and I think from a spiritual component, what I talk to my kids about is just being grateful for what you do have, because ultimately the reality is that you are in the belly of the beast and you are a beneficiary of the system that is designed to oppress people. And so you have to, that's not your fault, but you do have a responsibility. So you got to stop wasting your food. You got to stop wasting your time. You have to do as much good as you possibly can. And you have to stay informed. You have to increase your knowledge. You have to continue to learn and grow. And I think that the kids really resonate with that, because I'm like, think about it. If you wanted an apple right now, and we don't have apples at home, we can drive to the grocery store and get it. If you wanted to visit your grandparents right now, we could get in the car and we can drive and we'll get there eventually, right? And so think about everything that you love to eat, to do. You can have access to it, and that's a luxury, and that comes with a sense of responsibility. And so being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So while you're being grateful, you're also making dua for people who don't have the same opportunity as you, and just reflecting on that, I think, grounds us in that reality of where we really are and where we're headed as a community. Human connection. And it's like you can literally go to work, come back, and just put on Netflix for 5 hours and not think about a single thing, and that's convenient, that's easy. That doesn't impact you, and you just go about as if nothing's happening. And suddenly, when gas prices change, you just get a little flustered and angry. You buckle down a little bit, but you're oblivious to what's going on around the world. You want to be aware and in tune with what's going on, and that does mean spend a little bit of time. And this is where technology has benefited us. And I think that we talk so much about the negatives, but it allows us to really see the light and see what's going on. And we have so many perspectives online, which I really appreciate hearing from people who are documenting the really harsh reality on the ground. People who are going here from here to there as doctors, as people who provide food, aid, and things of that nature. There was this whole global coalition of people going on that flotilla, and I'm like, yeah, this is a humanitarian crisis that's going on right now. Everyone's realizing like whatever's going on today is impacting all of us. And I think it's important to know that no matter what level of injustice is happening anywhere, it impacts all of us. And so we have to make sure that this should be a wake up call for all of us, and how we train our kids, how do we raise them in a world where they have everything at their fingertips. I think they have the greatest responsibility to speak up for those people who are voiceless in our own communities and around the world. There's lots of things going on in the world today, and you don't want your kids to just overhear the news and learn things unintentionally. You need to have those tough conversations with them that are age appropriate. Make sure you shelter them from any violent imagery that's totally unnecessary and could completely traumatize them. Make sure that they are media literate and understand different perspectives and can ask the hard questions. Hey, where did you hear that? Who said that? And so that they can form really good opinions that are well rounded.
Help them learn about justice. What is justice, and how do we have a role in that, right? With that, using our hands, our voice, or our heart. So also relying on Allah through dua and dhikr. That's also part of our tawakkul in Allah, and using that as a tool when we're talking about these harsh realities.
And ultimately be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you have peace and shelter and security, and that comes with a sense of responsibility. So be grateful and find a role to play, whether it is talking to your neighbors, whether it's calling your senators, whether it is being a journalist, whatever it is that you can do. Find out what it is you're going to do to be a part of this world today, and do it together with your family. Until next time, we'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Bruh, it's 12:18. I'm tired.